Hi all. Today we are going to see a presentation on science process skills. So you know that science is a process. It's an assemblage of various processes. So that's why the process skills, its acquisition is so significant in learning as well as teaching of science. So what are actually these process skills, or what are the different processes inherent in science are very important. And these different processes contribute to the learning of science, learning of scientific capacities. So development of scientific capacities is otherwise termed as acquisition of scientific process skills. So, acquiring proficiency in certain specific areas, or doing some specific activities, because in science means it's for doing something, some activity, some practical, some involvement. So, in such a way that acquiring proficiency in certain areas, and the process skills deals with various processes which are different in nature. Different processes that we can see in detail, and these all these processes are linked with the method of science, or the scientific method, or the way in which we are doing things scientifically. So the process skills in science are generally divided into, can be divided into two, and it is not strict to divide process skills into, but for the sake of convenience we can say some process skills as basic process skills and some are integrated process skills. So the basic process skills in science include observing, measuring, inferring, classifying, predicting, and communicating. So these are the basic skills or basic actions. So these are the basic actions. So proficiency in these actions made us skilled in that process. So observing, not observation, we are observing. That's why it can be transformed as a process. Observing, measuring, inferring, classifying, predicting, and communicating. So, how all these things we should do, and what are the precautions to be taken, and what instruments or what specific procedure we should follow while doing these actions. And when we are adhering to all those set of qualities for doing these actions, then only we can claim that we are skilled in that particular process. So there are integrated process skills, as I have already told you, the set of process skills which includes different, more than one process skill for its activity, action, for the action. So you can see formulating hypothesis. That's one integrated process skill. More than one process skill may be linked to that action. Identifying of variables, defining variables operationally, describing relationship between variables, designing investigation, experimenting, collecting data, organizing data, analyzing data, understanding cause effect relationship, formulating models. And these actions, these activities can be said as integration of various actions. Each of these actions incorporating more than one process skill or more than one processes. That's why it is termed as integrated process skill, and there is no compulsion that you have to separate the basic and integrated, but here it is only for the sake of explanation. That's only. So now let us see the major basic process skills one by one. The first one, observing. So you know what is observing? Collecting information about objects and phenomena. So that's the uh, precise description that we can give on to observing, collecting information about objects and phenomena using our sense organs. So we are using our sense organ to sense, to perceive things around us, phenomena around us. So this what we observe. So what all things come under the purview of our observation? So we are observing pictures, can be pictures, photos, videos, audios, models, specimens, real objects, and live materials. So everything in and around subject to realization through our sense organs. We can term it as observing. So how do we observe? So that's also is significant because we are seeing something and looking into something is different. So for systematic observation, for observing something systematically, there shall be appropriate apparatus required at times. If you are trying to observe a cell, microorganism, you need some microscope. So in such a way that sometimes we require some appropriate apparatus. We have to identify changes and sequences of events, compare by identifying characteristics. These things we have to do while we are observing. Identify changes. So when we plan to observe seasons, we have to identify the changes occur in nature at different seasons. So we have to identify changes as well as to observe the sequence of events when we are observing something, when we are observing an experiment, a demonstration, not an experiment. Somebody is conducting an experiment, so we are just observing that. So what are the sequence of activities in it? And compare by identifying characteristics. All these things are it's one of the most significant and most basic process skill is observing. It influence all other integrated process skills. So the second one is classifying. So classifying means grouping objects according to its characteristics. So each living and non-living thing has its own specific some characteristics. So we have to group them. So that process of grouping, process of arranging them in groups on the basis of a set of characteristics is termed as classifying. So this classifying is to be done when items are plenty or they are unorganized or not organized. There are so many things, so it is very difficult to study about that. So we have to classify, we have to organize them into specific groups so we can take representation from each group. And how we can classify? It's a three-step process. Identify general characteristics. Similarities shall be identified at first, and all the similar items can be picked and sort out to groups. That's the second step. So, what are the similar characteristics of if you are providing a set of pictures of various organisms? We have to classify them. We have to identify the general characteristics. So, we first look into that picture, and that picture you can see the pictures for of so many plants and so many animals. So, first of all, you have to uh, group them as plants and then to animals, and that is and identify other characteristics. And once you did such a broad classification, then you search for further characteristics. And for example, in for plants, there are flowering plants or trees or herbs or whatever it is. So what are the different characteristics or specific characteristics? Then you can classify them further or group them further. It's also a skilled process. Then measuring and using numbers. That's another process skill. That process of measuring quantitative observation using standard tool or standardized tools. So we are using some specific tools to quantifying observations. So it's observing quantifiably. So quantity observation. So what quantity? So how we observe that or measure something. So the measuring is for accuracy. And how do we measure? So identify the measurement required. Which measurement is required? Do we require length or breadth or weight? And so on so. So what measurement required? So we need to measure the weight of say students in a class. So and then the second step shall be identifying appropriate instruments. So what instrument shall we use to measure the weight? It's a meter scale or a weighing machine. So that's the selection of appropriate instrument for measuring. Then reliable measures. So we have to, that process of measuring, that is also very significant. So for example, when you are going to take weight of a person, so make sure that the indicator is on zero before you started to measure. So such kind of small things or minute things are there in using different kinds of instruments, that adjustments required for instruments, etc. So then the units of measure. Which unit? So in weight of something like gold, we are usually say in grams or milligrams. But a weight of a person, the units shall be in kilograms. So, or the distance between two points on a table shall be in centimeters or millimeters, but the distance between two places shall be kilometers. So, such kind of appropriate unit selection also comes under this specific process skill, measuring and using numbers. Then making inferences or inferring. Inferring is another important process skill in science. Early conclusion. Inferences are early conclusions based on previous experiences and immediate observation. So it's a time being conclusion based on immediate observation and previous experiences. And this inferring will help to plan, to choose, to analyze the relation between objects or phenomena. And how to infer? So, for inferring, we have to observe situations and surroundings. So, in any case, observation is the basis of everything. So, observe surrounding, observe situations and make a statement why it is so. So what shall be this thing, and to suggest certain reason, because this for reason it's going to be raining because it's cloudy. So what's the reasons? Then check credibility of reasons, and once put forth some reasons, whether these reasons are credible or not, so that making some early conclusion. It's not a final one, it's an early conclusion. Then predicting, forecasting events based on observations and previous experience. So we have to forecasting something. This shall be going to happen when we are doing this thing in this and this way. Then it may result in this. So such kind of a prediction, a forecast for forecasting of climate. So that's a very complicated thing. So I just say it as an example. So forecasting something, and when we are mixing two substances, you will get this. You will get this color, or you will get this smell. And when we are preparing some food item, when you add something special, this shall be a special aroma or special taste for this. All these are some kind of prediction. And this predicting will help us to reduce choices, and there is no accuracy is required in prediction because it's tentative for the time being. And how to do this prediction can be made by identifying pattern in data. There shall be a pattern, we have to identify that pattern, and on the basis of pattern where this data leads us, that give us a guideline on how to what shall be our prediction. And also the past data already available, the existing experience also help us for prediction. And we have to observe for accurate data. On the basis of that observation and basis of that pattern of existing data, and on the basis of the previous data, we can make predictions. Then communicating, that's also another important process skill, and it's very essential to communicate things. So in communicating, we are receiving, spreading and sharing information. So informations are disseminated, ideas or informations are disseminated. So that's what actually we are uh, doing in communicating. Systematic communication is very essential. So how we communicate things systematically and correctly, that communication can be, that material to be communicated shall be correct in its all sense, and it shall be disseminated properly. So how do we communicate? In science, you have to record, translate and transfer. These are the three processes, three actions behind communicating something. We have to record the observation or whatever it is, the result, the finding, and translate it into appropriate language or symbols or drawings, whatever it is. And then transfer means disseminate to or to share that information to other people. Then controlling variables, that's actually not included in this set of basic process skills, but it's an essential process skill, that's why I included it here. Identifying variables, so in order to control variables, some the characters which varies is variable, and identifying variables is the basic thing, how to identify, and it is essential for systematic investigation. So what are the variables and identifying that variables is essential for carrying out appropriate systematic investigations. And for controlling variables, we have to determine variables to be controlled. So, which all variables to be controlled, that should be determined. And also, we have to identify ways to control. How we can control each of the variable to be controlled. Then making hypothesis or hypothesizing. So that's also an important skill. So hypotheses are suitable explanations of some action. When we are doing this thing, this and this may happen, and there shall be a relation between this and this. There shall be a relation between cloud and raining. Such kind of suitable explanation, and it's evident that there shall be more than one explanations always. In science especially, science never stick on one answer or one hypothesis. There shall be a set of hypotheses, and the hypothesis is only a suggestion. It's not final, it's only a suggestion. So to approach hypothesis in that way, hypothesis shall be tested and verified. So these are the brief presentation on process skills in science. We have detailed on the basic process skills such as observing, classifying, interpreting, predicting, measuring, hypothesis, hypothesizing, classifying, and in addition, controlling variables. So thanks for watching this presentation. Thank you all.